so like, yeah, we should be enjoying some of these things. One of the things I want to hit back is like when it comes to that lazy mindset. Don't worry, I think I'm just as guilty with it. One of the things I read recently, just kind of a good reminder as I'm kind of like studying for this, was in Proverbs 26, verse 13. The lazy man says, there is a lion in the road. A fierce lion is in the streets. As a door turns on its hinges, so does the lazy man on his bed. The lazy man buries his hands in the bowl. It wearies him to bring it to his mouth. And I love this verse. The lazy man is wiser in his own eyes than 7 men who can answer sensibly. And like one of the things that just comes to my mind is like, lazy people always have an excuse. You know, they always have an excuse to why they don't have to do something, or why, you know, one of the examples like, why do I have to make my bed if it's just going to be dirty? When I sleep
don't
on
make my bed. That's my excuse.
Right? No, but like, right? Isn't that, like, we can easily justify anything. Like, why should I wash the dish if I'm just gonna get it dirty again, or if I can just reuse it? I don't know. Like, people will come up with any kind of reason for
wear your
anything.
shirt inside backwards. Wait, no, backwards, frontwards, backwards, inside out, backwards, forwards.
Yeah, like you can just flip it around, do that, and just be lazy. But like, again, like he says, like the lazy man says, there's a lion in the road. They will, which is technically true. Like, out there in the wilderness, there is the possibility that as you're moving and traveling, there is a lion.
You're saying lion?
Lion.
Okay.
Like, roar.
Okay,
Possum.
I heard line
Oh.
a couple times,
Sorry.
and I was like,
Lion.
okay, got it.
So, like, which is technically true, but it's like, yeah, but if you live with that expectation that, like, hey, something bad could happen, you're never going to get anything done.
You're also living out of fear. And you're
Exactly.
not
You're
called
living,
to do that.
but you're using that as a clutch and as an excuse.
Mhm.
And so, like, same thing with a lot of lazy people. Like, they're wise in their own eyes. They think they know these things. And like, hey, why should I? You know, if X and Y is a possibility, there's no point doing it. And it's like, you have to do something.
Mhm.
Like, otherwise, you're just gonna sit at home and do nothing.
Nothing healthy, generally.
Yeah. And like, I don't know. One of the things I love watching in my free time are streamers. And one of the common things I hear, shut up. One of the common things I hear is like people put in their chats like, hey, you're so lucky that you got to this point. Like, honestly, like it's insane how easy it is for you. And like one of the most common responses I hear from multiple streamers is like, you have no idea.
Mhm.
I've literally spent, like, one guy I was just listening to even like the other night, for 10 years he spent every single day, even on the holidays, for like at least 6 hours playing a game or streaming. And he's been doing that, and after years he finally got success. One of the examples is Mr. Beast. We all look at him as like the most successful man, but like it took him 2 years to get to his first 1,000 subscribers. Woo! We're gonna be on our way soon, all right? But we're getting there. Hopefully not in 2 years, but like literally, like he had to be diligent. Like the people who are successful are the ones who are diligent. They hustle, they work, they like the things that makes the streamers most popular, most famous isn't because they have the most talent. It's like literally they work the most.
Mhm.
They're on every single time.
Mhm.
I don't know. So it was just one of those things like I like to look at like examples, and like I hear these things and I'm like, that's a perfect example of what I'm about to talk about.
Yeah, that's a good excuse for lazy people too.
Mhm.
They're just got it in their head like, yeah, well they just
Got lucky.
they had the right opportunity, or yeah, they just whatever. Like
Yeah.
somebody handed that down to them, or they're just whatever.
Mhm.
And they don't allow themselves maybe, or they don't choose to see the behind the scenes, because then that points out flaws,
Yeah.
and then you have to really be like, oh well, I guess I should do something.
Mm-hmm. Man, it's been a little wild talk. I feel like we're so harsh on both ends. like I don't know. I feel like this is like mixed signals. Like, hey, don't be too busy, but also like don't be lazy. You gotta be doing
Right.
something. Work hard, but like don't work too hard. And it's like, so this is like a
little
really
scattered.
I feel like this is really difficult. You know, like a difficult message or a difficult thing to kind of like get a grip on. Because I think we tackled both kind of extremes of like too busy and like
Mhm.
now we want like what's that good middle ground, do you think, or what's that good place that we should be? Like, you know, we talked about rest, but like often when we think about rest, we kind of associate that on one end with the laziness. What is that like rest? What does it mean to like not be?
Well, I think I'm just basing it off of God, so I think that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But in the beginning, God created everything in 6 days.
And jet skis too, right?
He made jet skis.
He made jet skis too.
He made everything in the known natural world in 6 days, and on the seventh day he rested. And the important note for just God is that he didn't need rest. He did it as an example to us, like, hey, this is a good thing to have time to enjoy the things, to be able to look through the things you've worked on and be able to appreciate the work that's been put in and to see the splendor in it. So if you want to take it straight from God, who's a pretty good example,
arguably.
work your days, do it fully, like put the time, the effort in, do it well, be proud of it, and then God calls us to Sabbath. He called it a day of rest, and he actually commanded it in the Old Testament, like on this day you are going to rest. And I believe it's a command because, like us, we don't want to. Like, I just got, God, I love the idea. It's a great idea. But, I have to really catch up on my schoolwork. I'm really behind. That's because I didn't put the work in when I was supposed to, but I'm really behind. So I got to catch up on that. And, I haven't hung out with this person in a while, and I haven't done this. And your day immediately fills. And it's so easy to do, and it's really hard to rest and to Sabbath. But we're called to do it, and not as like I think is the big one, not as a punishment or one more thing to add to your list. Like, oh my gosh, now I gotta set aside 3 hours to not do anything, and it's like this burden. But he calls us like it's a thing that's supposed to be taken out. It's a subtraction, not an addition. And John Mark Comer has the book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, that he talks about how busy the world is, and we're too busy. And he does really good on talking about silence and solitude and Sabbath and really focusing in those times. And he actually goes as far to say is the I think he used the word buckets. The 2 buckets that your faith is going to grow in the most is in community and is in silence and solitude. So the silence and solitude we're going to focus on, because in your busyness, silence and solitude does not happen.
Yeah.
When was the last time the average person was silent and alone on purpose to be with God?
Mm-hmm.
Like, those listening, when was the last time that you were like, you know what, I am going to just have a quiet 15 minutes to just listen to God and to just read my Bible.
Yeah.
And to just not listen to music. You don't have your phone nearby. You are not talking to people. And you just get quiet. Like, even in the car, every time, people can't turn the car
I was just going to mention, just literally don't even play any music. No podcast, no music, no nothing. You're just in the car, just dealing with Florida drivers. How stressful is that?
It's like a running joke, though, because people are like, ooh, if I'm silent, then I gotta be alone with my own thoughts. Like, good.
Mm-hmm.
You should be able to process some things and talk to God.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do it.
No, I think that's, and like right along those lines, like, we should be alone in our own thoughts, but it's a little bit of a different issue why we avoid that. That's going to be a little bit of a different topic. Why people avoid that. Like, there's a very, I don't know if it's a good reason, there's a very serious reason, or a very common reason. But, like, anyway, so, like, but we should be able to, like, process information. We should be dealing with our own thoughts. One of the things, like, I've just kind of, like, as a note, like, and this is from, like, several people that I've studied, and, like, we live in this age that there's just constant flow of information.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, every single day we learn something. Every single news we receive instantly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's nothing. Back then, you can just work your farm and routine, and you might have some drama within the family, but you wouldn't know what the neighbor is going through, or what the community, or what the whole state is going through. You kind of just dealt with your own small world, and that gave you time to process things.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're so connected to the world. Like, anything that happens in a different country, we're aware of. And that kind of puts so much into that. Like, I like how one guy explained, like, we never have time to process information. properly. Like we don't. We're so overfilled with information, whether it's through school or whether it's through social media, whether it's through our friends, or whether it's through politics. We don't process things. We don't have time to just sit back with our own thoughts.
That's the thing. We don't have time. Like
Yeah.
it's from eyes open to eyes shut. You open your eyes and phone.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh, what did I miss in the last 8 hours? Let
Yeah.
me do. Well, probably less for a lot of people. The
Yeah.
last 6 hours. What did
8
I
hours.
miss?
Look at you. You're so fancy.
And as soon as it's then, and then the exact same thing when you go to sleep. You scroll. And you always have that information, like you're saying, going through your mind. And there was something that I was in some men's group or something that they're talking about it, about how it's a really good practice to shut your phone off or put it in a different room 30 minutes before you expect to go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And so 30 minutes you are allowing yourself, it's also healthy to have your brain just be able to kind of slowly decompress a little bit without all that influence and the stuff being shoved, that information being shoved in. It gives you a quietness. It gives you time to just kind of meditate. Like, what happened today? What could I do differently? What did I do really well? What happened? What was the conversation? Stuff like that. It's also good for your eyes to not be on your phone. The whole blue light thing, I don't know much about. But all of the things, and then you fill it with something else. So you don't need to just like stare at the ceiling if you don't want to. Sometimes I think that's good. But like, that's a good time to read your Bible and or play worship music, I guess, if you can do it off your phone.
But no, and just to go a little bit back, like when we were talking about the Sabbath, like God made that a day for us to observe our good works, like to observe the things and just enjoy what we have. And kind of like how you made a point earlier, like that when you were trying to set up for 3 hours, like it's so frustrating and so difficult. And I just find it so ironic. It's like someone's trying to massage you. Why aren't you relaxing? Like someone's like strangling you. Like, aren't you relaxed? Aren't you feeling better? It's like, no. Like, why is it so weird that? Why do you think it's so weird for us to just enjoy or relax, sit back?
You feel like you're missing out. Like, it's so ingrained in our culture to always be moving and doing something that if you are not doing something, then that means there's a problem. I think, and so you immediately like when your whole life is go. Then when you get to a slow, even not even a stop, like a slow down, you're like, okay, I feel like I should be doing something right now. Like, maybe it's just me, but do you like when you're watching a movie, you're also on your phone?
No,
Okay.
I know several people who like when they're watching a movie, they can't even do that. They have to be on their phone. They have to read on Wikipedia, or they have to like read some articles or something like that. They have to like they can't do something like that slow pace. Like their mind is always running. And I don't know, like I feel like some people are a different breed. Like when they're born, they have to move and they have to think. And I feel like that's probably harder for them. Like I feel like some people got this part easy. It's like if you're already kind of naturally lazy, like I know how to rest.
Right.
I do it all week. Sabbath for one day, Sabbath for 7 days for me.
Right.
Come on. Or I work one day a week,
Well, there's the opposite. Do something. And work, I think, just real quick, work doesn't have to be a job. Like there's a lot, I don't know if any of you listen, but there's a lot of retired people around us, especially.
Oh. Yeah.
And you can fill your time with really good things that are not for work. Like go volunteer, go do something good for the community, go help at your church, go make disciples, as we're called. Go mentor someone or speak into someone's life that needs someone to speak into their life, and fill your time with something good. And that is work. That takes effort. That takes good. But those are really good things that if you are a naturally lazy person, or if you just happen to have more free time than others, or intentionally created that free time for those things, like find something really good to do, but don't make it your priority to do stuff. I think that's the main goal.
Yeah.
Prioritize Jesus.
And it's mostly just the prioritization. Like that's probably the most important part. Like we should be doing something, and it's important to be doing good things. And just like, again, work doesn't always have to. Doing work doesn't always have to be money or job related. It can be so many other different things in our lives. good example, the retired people. For me, I just like I always see them golfing or just doing like nonsense. I'm like, how much time do you guys have?
Retirement is not in the Bible.
I know.
don't think
I'm like,
anywhere, and there's no point where Jesus is like, once you've worked for 40 years, you can just not
yeah.
do anything for my kingdom anymore.
But I think as much as I get kind of pissed off about that whole like situation when I see retired people do nothing, I think it's really cool when I see some of them who are doing a lot of things, like especially like volunteering, or especially whether it's discipling or doing like something in the church or something like that. Like, I think that's really cool. You have all this time, and you could have been doing anything else. Instead, you choose to put it into God, or put it into ministry, or put it into people even, which I think is super cool. I'm just gonna read something, and I feel like this is not the right time to read it. So I'm like, I feel like we went a different direction from it, and I don't know. I'm just gonna jump somewhere else instead, because like back to Ecclesiastes, back to that wise old Solomon. There was like a verse that I think is pretty good that talks about in chapter 5, verse 12, the sleep of a laboring man is sweet, whether he eats little or much, but the abundance of the rich will not permit him to sleep. And I like that, because like a person who is working, a person who is doing something has, I don't know, like they are allowed to sleep. Like, and one of the things I felt like, I've had some people who would tell me, hey, I had issues sleeping. And I just be like, dude, do something outside. Work for a little bit. Get your butt off, put up a sweat, run, and you will get sleepy. You will get tired. Like, that's helpful for a lot of people. And it's just like, when we're doing something, when we're working, we can finally rest.
And you feel good about it. Like at the end of the day, when you wake up and you have a really productive day, like it may not be big things at all. But if you're like, yeah, I did this task and I did this task, and you make these small tasks, and you're like, I worked and I did some good stuff. At the end of the day, you'd be like, I had a good day today. It went well. I feel good about the work that I did. And I can go to sleep and be at peace knowing like that was a good day.
Yeah. And with that verse, it makes me think like, it's not just necessarily you're tired and now you can sleep. If you actually do some work, there is actually some rest. You can actually enjoy what you did. Like if you didn't do anything productive, your self-esteem is low, your confidence, you feel crappy about the day, and you can't really enjoy it.
Also, if you know you messed up or didn't do very good work, you can be on edge about, I wonder if they're going to see that mistake, or if they're going to pick up on that wasn't what it should have been.
Yeah.
And that's just stirring in you too. Not that I've ever had that, but
never had that. That's other people's issue.
Yeah.
But like, it's just kind of like, so earlier they made the joke like, it's lazier people have an easier time resting, but like, I feel like it's harder to rest when you didn't do anything.
Lazy people can sleep more.
Yeah, you can sleep more, but like, are you really resting? Are you really enjoying what? Because like, part of the whole Sabbath, it wasn't God didn't need rest because he was tired, but because he can sit back and be like, now I can enjoy the fruit of my work. I don't know, like some people, when I go to work at customers' houses, some of them build like boats or model trains or planes, and I think it's so cool. They spent months working on this thing, and they put little fine detail, put little tiny little strokes of paint on it, make little designs, and then like they're showing me this collection, and like they're like, yeah, this one I spent this much time. It's based off of this ship, or it's based off of this plane, and I think it's so cool because they put all this time, and now they can sit back and just look at it and enjoy the work that they've done. And that's kind of how I like to imagine. Like, you put all this effort and work, and it took some time, and put some sweat into it, and then now you can sit back and enjoy it. And I think that adds so much more like enjoyment to your life, so much more to enjoy things. Because if you're not working and you're being a little bit lazy, like, what do you have to enjoy? You're just not doing anything.
You don't have anything to be excited about or proud about, or anything like that, or even you can't. Say you better not. I don't know if I know any lazy, grateful people. I don't know if those go.
I've never thought of that. I'll have to think more about that.
But if you're working and you have a mindset of doing well, you're in a better mindset, like to be moving around and doing a job and feeling good about it. I think it's easier to be grateful for the things you have, like grateful that you got that job or that you got that thing done, even if it's as simple as I'm thankful that that's done and I can be over with it. But if you're lazy all the time, you're grateful you got a good bed that you didn't get great rest in because you're still tired after you woke up after your 15-hour nap. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
No, I think you're pretty spot on with that one. Yeah, as far as I think like we do need some time we need that quiet time. We need that rest time. And that's hard, that's easier said than done because I don't know why it's so counterculture and I don't have the full answers to that. I know it's something I'm trying to be more intentional with, and I feel like God's kind of put me in a season where like I kind of have to deal with some things and I have to kind of think about it. And so like one of the examples and verse that comes to my mind is in Hosea, which I know a lot of people avoid that whole book of the Bible, but it's somewhere in the middle, maybe like 3/4 actually. But there's a verse in chapter 2, verse 14, where like God is first kind of like rebuking the adulterous woman, and later he talks about behold, I will allure her, I will bring her to the wilderness and speak comfort to her. Like God's first like bringing all this like curses and destruction, but then like as soon as he's like, okay, now I'm going to bring you to this wilderness. I'm going to bring you to this quiet place where it's just you and me. And that's when God starts to give all these promises. I will give her vineyards there in the valley of acres, a door of hope, and she will sing there as in the days of her youth, as in the day she came from the land of Egypt. So like God brings us to a wilderness. God brings us to this place to sometimes speak to us. And I think like we shouldn't look at this like, hey, I have to find quiet time and lonely time. It's like sometimes the only time we can hear from God is when we shut things off, when we turn off the TV, when we, I don't know, like one of the examples is just take away all your distractions, put that phone away.
The story about Moses and God, and Moses is trying to hear the voice of God, and so there's this massive whirlwind and this gale force wind, and Moses is listening, but God wasn't in that.
I don't think that was Moses. Wasn't that Elijah?
Was it Elijah?
I think so.
There's a guy in the Bible.
Yeah.
There's a guy in the Bible who's listening for God, and the whirlwind, and then there's an earthquake, and the earthquake happens, and the guy's listening for God in the earthquake. And anyways, there's these really big things that he's listening for God in, and then he hears this like still small voice, and just this almost like a whisper, and that was God speaking to him. And you're not going to hear that still small voice that God sometimes speaks in when you are blasting the world in your head all the time.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the little point. Like God will sometimes force us and bring us to those places, but like also that's when you'll have time to actually learn and grow and reflect. That's the time that God will probably speak the most to you. Isn't that quiet time? So like, yeah, I know we kind of like bring up all these things like, hey, why you should rest, why you should have some quiet time, but like solitude and silence, like be alone and be quiet for a little bit is absolutely important for our growth. Otherwise, we just fill ourselves up with TikTok, Instagram, news, movies, TV, and it's like, how are we listening to God if we're just filling ourselves constantly with that music? Yeah, so I don't know. I feel like that's just kind of important.
So in conclusion, if you feel like you're too busy and you're getting worn out and you're just dragging along because of your busy schedule, subtract something from your life, pray about it, try to prioritize your life and have God at the front, and I kind of ask yourself, like, what is God having me do and what am I just adding in there? Subtract something to give yourself time for quiet time with God. And if you're lazy and you know it and you're just a couch potato,
like clap your hands.
If you're lazy and you know it, clap your hands. That's an activity for you.
I just heard someone else clap behind my camera. I know someone's clapping.
Do something. Do good work. Fill your time with something good. And again, pray about it and ask God, where can I go and where does He want me to fill my time with? Whether that's you're our age and you just don't have a job because you don't want to get off your butt and get a job. Or if you're retired and you're like, well, what do I do? I'm done with work. Well, thank you for working for so long. I don't want to minimize that, but find something good that you can do for the kingdom because the work is not done and we need you to continue. I guess that was trying to hit both sides.
No, you're good, and like I know this is kind of like a longer episode, like or just it's hard to tackle all this in one subject. So like I know we try to cut that in half and like try to explain as far as between that laziness and busyness, but then now I hopefully I think hopefully kind of hit that middle ground where you should be, which is absolutely important. Otherwise we get burnt out. Otherwise we're tired. So in any case, thank you guys so much for watching us. This has been it's good to be back.
It's been a wild ride today.
It's been a wild ride. It's been really good. So it's good seeing you guys, and I don't see you, but you see me. We'll see you around next time.